Welcome back to a new episode of Run Sailing. Last week we arrived in Tenerife and started the preparations for our Atlantic crossing. And we still had quite a lot to do before we can sail away.
So it's been a bit over a year since we replaced the whole mast and the rigging on the boat, and now it's a good time to check everything through if there's any problems, especially now since we're going to cross the Atlantic soon. Yeah, there's of course many different ways on how you can do this, but the way I do it is that I always start with checking the shame plates first, because yeah, if you have a problem there, you have some major problems. So what I'm looking for at the shame plates are cracks, or if there's any sign of crevice corrosion, which is something that can occur in stainless steel if you have low oxygen levels, if it's been sitting in water without any oxygen. Then you can get crevice corrosion, and that can sometimes be quite hard to see, and that can be in areas like here. To do this properly, you should really remove these plates and check underneath here. But we did this about a year ago, so I know that they are okay. But I'll check them anyway now, just visually on top. There is a special dye that you can buy and put on there, so you will see small hair-thin cracks easier. I like to do an inspection like this in layers. So I start with the shame plates and check all of them on the whole boat. And then I move up one layer, check the turnbuckles, all of them. And then move up, move up, move up. I probably won't find any problems on this mast. I mean, it's only 1 year old and the whole rigging. But it's good to start in time to do these checks, because the earlier you catch a problem, the easier it will be to fix it, and a lot cheaper. Yeah, the next thing I check on the boat is all the turnbuckles. And of course I also check all the cotter pins on the turnbuckle if there's any problem with those. Yeah, the turnbuckles we have on the boat are made from bronze and stainless. So the body is made from bronze and the bolts here, these parts, are made from stainless. Which is nice because this way you don't damage the threads as easily as you would have if you have a full stainless turnbuckle. The bronze here is a lot softer than the stainless, so it will give some type of almost like lubrication really when you put force on them. They are a bit more expensive, but they last a really long time. But you could still have problems with crevice corrosion in the stainless parts, like here. If you have oxygen starvation in some areas and you have standing water there. So after checking all the shame plates around the boat and all the turnbuckles for problems, I move up one step and I look at this area. This area is quite critical really, and it's a pretty common area to get problems at. As you can see here, only after 1 year we already have some corrosion here. And the problem is that salt water, everything gets on the stays and it runs down into the body of the swage fitting here. And this could lead to corrosion inside, and when you get corrosion, the corrosion material, it will expand inside there, and that can crack the fitting, the body here. So what you're looking for are cracks in this body, and I'm also looking at the strands of the wire. Yeah, but everything looks all right here. I will just clean them. So I've cleaned this off with acid now. And as you can see, all the rust is gone. Ideally, you should actually remove this so you can bend this a little bit if you have problems in any of these strands They often pop out when you put some bending on it. Yeah, next on my list are the hydraulics on the boat. This boat has a hydraulic backstay tensioner and a hydraulic boom vang, this one. And they are controlled from this panel in the cockpit. Yeah, problems here could be the seals, that they are leaking. So I'll check the condition of the piston here. If there's any nicks or anything in that could damage the seal. And if there's any oil on the piston or any signs of that the piston is leaking. I'll also check the hoses. If there's any oil on any of the connections here. This hose here needs to be replaced. I won't do it now, but eventually this needs to come off. This is from UV light. So I will pull it out, probably replace the whole hose. This boom vang is under pressure from gas on this side and has the oil on that side of the piston, if the piston is in here, or the seal inside here. Also oil on one side and gas under high pressure on one side. And that high pressured gas is what holds the boom up when you release the tension on the hydraulic side. Same thing with the backstay tensioner. Check the piston for any problems there, corrosion, nicks, and the seal, and if there's any sign of the seal being compromised and leaking. This is the same thing. It also has a pressurized side, but the pressure in this one is not as big as in the boom vang. One improvement that we're going to do here is that we're going to cut the wire here and put the stallock fitting and a turnbuckle between the stallock and this fitting down here. That way, if the hydraulics is failing for some reason and this rod extends fully, we could still put some pressure on the backstay with that turnbuckle. So that's a project for the future. I don't have time for that now. Even if we lose pressure now and the rod comes fully extended, the mast will still stay in place and have some tension on the forestays, but it's not ideal. And we'll also check the panel in here so that everything works, and also on the inside so we don't have any leaks behind the panel. So start with the vang. Let's put some pressure on it. It's really hard to build up some pressure here now because we don't have anything holding against the boom. I don't have a topping lift connected now, but I know it's working the way it should. The backstay, just turn it over, check the pressure, can put some more pressure on it, and then you can let it sit, and then you come back and see if the pressure has dropped. And if it's dropping, you know you have a leak somewhere. Since we're using this quite a lot, I know that there's no problems on this. I actually like this quite a lot, the hydraulic panel here. It's nice to be able to control this easily from the cockpit, both the backstay and the vang. Yeah, the downside is the maintenance, of course, and the potential problems that you can have from hydraulics. But when it's working, it's really nice. Next thing on my list to check are these control lines for the rollers, for the Yousah and the staysail, and also for the outhaul line for the mainsail now, since we have a in-mast furling sail on this boat. So I just check these lines for chafe. Also, of course, if there's any snags or anything in here inside the drums. Yeah, the problem with having chafe on these lines are, of course, that if you have, let's say, the Yousah reefed in a heavy squall and this line comes apart, the whole sail will come out as well. I also take the opportunity to check the roller bearings on the rollers in here for salt buildup and dirt. Over time you can get a lot of dirt collecting here, especially if you have too much grease in there. So don't put too much grease, you will only have problems from that. That extra grease will only attract salt and dirt, and you will also smear your sail if you have too much grease in there. So if you're putting more grease in, make sure to clean the old one out first, and the dirt and the salt and everything that is in there, because over time that excessive amount of grease and the dirt and the salt and everything that it gets collected in there, that will wear the roller bearing down in here. This looks all right. After longer passages where we've been having green water or a lot of salt spray over the boat, I often try to wash these off so you don't have a buildup of salt crystals in here. And like I said before, because we have in-mast furling now on the mast, we also have a control line for the mainsail. And this is the line that holds the sail in the back end here. So it goes all the way through the block up here in the sail, back through this block, back to the end of the boom here, through another sheave, and then inside the boom, coming out here, through another block, down through another block, over here, through another block, another one, and then through a stainless pipe that is going straight through the boat all the way back here, where it leads to this electric winch for the SMF system, the synchronized main furling system. So after checking for chafe on the outhaul line, I check all these cutter pins for the boom, the bracket here on the mast, same here for the boom wang, the bracket, the cutter pin. See that everything is all right. This is a quite common area for problems on a mast because you have a lot of pressure here, and over time you can have dirt and salt crystals building up in here, grinding down the aluminium here from the stainless steel moving around inside of here. And then you can get a lot of play, which in itself it's no big problem, it's just annoying because you will get a lot of sound and movement from that inside the boat. You will hear it. Also check up here, the attachment point for the boom wang. Everything looks okay. And then of course the attachment point for the main sheet. So the way this works, the SMF system, is you push this main out here, and that will engage this winch and the motor in the mast, and they will talk to each other and let the sail out. This winch will pull the outhaul line out, and the motor in the mast will unwind the sail in a speed that it's good, that it's equivalent to the speed that this winch is pulling the sail out. So you push here, that will engage the winch. If you hold this one in as well, it will go faster. Yeah, everything looks good. To take the sail in again, you just release the outhaul line, hold it in your hand and press main in. And then I always look at the sail while I do this. Very easy and convenient system, especially now with Vera on board, or we're always sailing the boat alone really. Goes really quick to reef, and you can even reef downwind, doesn't matter. Yeah, this is an area where I know that we have a lot of room for improvement, and the biggest problem here is this winch, or really the entry angle of this line coming into the winch is too flat, and sometimes because of that we get override on this winch, which is not very nice to get. So this is a problem I will try to solve. I will lift this winch up a bit with another block of teak underneath, and hopefully that will solve the problem. Also, these blocks or sheaves are becoming a bit brittle from the UV light. I guess they're from '88, so pretty old. And also the wheels on this car are a bit worn out. It's not critical, but we can still use it for quite some, probably a few more years. But the problem with the winch here is the main problem, really. Also, the lines are a bit old and worn out, the control lines and the main sheet here. So maybe we'll replace those soon as well. The checks that I do now for the Atlantic crossing here is just for chafe, really. From what I can see, there's nothing, no problems really. It is a hot day today. It's really warm. But I'm done with all the rig checks down here at deck level, and what's left now is up in the mast, and to be able to do that I need some help to get up there. Some Malin will have to help me and winch me up, but maybe I'll do that tomorrow. Are you ready for a workout?
Yeah, it's cold. It's good. I need to get warm again.
Yeah, it's a bit colder today.
Yeah, it's a little chilly today. It's windy and cloudy. Yeah, you're going up the mast. Do some inspection up there. See what the state is. Should be fine.
Yeah, I don't trust these for going up the mast, so I always use a nut instead. Just make a bow line through here. And then I have an extra spare halyard, so I have 2 halyards that attached at all times. Yeah, going up the mast like this is tempting to use the electrical winches or the windlass, but I don't like that, because if you have a problem with the solenoid, it can be really dangerous if the motor gets stuck in the on position and just haul you up. Got a bar. The reason I like to go to the top first and start there and then go down is that, especially back home in Sweden, you never know if the weather is going to change and deteriorate. Maybe it will start to rain. This mast is about 21 meters above the water level. And one problem up here on this type of mast is that there is not a lot to hold on to, because the top shrouds are below me now. So it's really only the backstay that you can hold on. Stop, stop! Yeah, this is how high I can go. Yeah, one thing I noticed up here, and I already knew this, is that our Windex has turned 180 degrees. I guess there's been some birds sitting on it or something. You can see here. That's the stern of the boat down there. So it's in the wrong direction. Yeah, other from that, I mean, the inspection on the masts is the same really as all the stuff that I did yesterday down at deck level. Check all of these. If there's any corrosion, cracks on these fittings, the swage fittings, and if there's any sign of problems on the actual wire on the strands here. So I check all the stuff up here, that it's properly connected still, the antennas, cables, the wind instrument, but it's actually a bit, oh, some spider web in here to clean that out. So I'll try to see what's been happening here. Oh, it has just yeah, what's been happening here with the Windex is that the actual screw holding it in place is not tight anymore. Okay, yeah, I really should have had some Loctite in there, but this will be okay for now, I think. Malin, could you turn on the navigation lights and the anchor light? So I found a problem with our anchor lantern. Some of the LEDs inside of it is not working any longer. You can see they are lit up there, and then I come around and they're not lit up. I don't have a spare one, so that's something that we have to solve later. But the navigational lights are working and all the LEDs on that one is working okay. So everything on top of the mast seems to be okay, except for that anchor lantern. So now I'll continue with the actual mast and the fittings on that. I think you call this the crane. I don't know in English. Check for cracks around the bolts here in the aluminium. And of course, if these cutter pins are okay. Same with these, and if there is any crack in the stainless or any problem like that. These bolts should always be in this direction, not the other way around. Because this way, if you have a problem with the cutter pin and that falls out, the likelihood is higher that this bolt will stay in place if it's in this direction. If it would have been the other way around, it would probably just fall straight out because of gravity. Continue with the halyard sheaths up here. This is a really important piece. A lot of people that have problems when they fly a spinnaker or a asymmetrical spinnaker crossing the Atlantic for longer times, and they only have this sheave box, and you take this halyard straight to the spinnaker. When you sail for days on end and you have it up, it's very easily to get a lot of chafe on that halyard from these edges, and that can cut off this halyard pretty quick, just in 24 hours really, if you have a lot of movement in the spinnaker. So that's why it's nice to have a bracket like this, a fair lead I think it's called in English. You could also have a block standing here with the spring holding it out, and that block will move together with the spinnaker, preventing chafe. So I checked the rivets here, and also for corrosion, always when you have stainless steel mixed with aluminium, there's the potential of galvanic corrosion because you have dissimilar metals with different potential. So I've come down a bit to the cap shrouds or the top shrouds. Same thing here, check for cracks in the aluminium and in the swage fittings, and that the cutter pins are sitting correctly. These areas, it's good to check for stress cracks in the aluminium if there's been a lot of force on this whole bracket here. Also for corrosion from dissimilar metals. If you have a problem, you will see it here. And then you have the sheave box. Look at these wheels, they're okay. Look for chafe on the halyard. These halyards, they often sit at the same position here for long periods. Could be nice to either shorten the halyard every now and then, so it sits at another position here, or you can just change the direction of the halyard. I also checked the bearings, how dirty it is on the Furlix unit here on top, and of course also this line, so you don't have any chafe on that, because then the sail will fall down. Same checks on this side for the cap shroud. Can take me down maybe 2 or 3 meters. So I'm at the top spreaders, just above them, where we have the staysail fitting. I check the connections for our, I don't know in English, check stays in English or back stays. We call them backstag in Swedish, but in English that will be that one. We call that akterstag, and in English it's backstay. So what's this? Check stays? Check stays are lower down, I think. But these are the ones that we put pressure on when we use the staysail, so we can have some proper tension on this sail. So I just checked the brackets for cracks here in the aluminium. We haven't used these a lot, so I know that there haven't really been any pressure put on them, so they should be okay. And then we have the bracket for the staysail. Same thing as up on top. Check for cracks and corrosion. Here we might actually have a problem. That's a bit suspicious. That cotter pin looks like there's a small crack here. We'll see if it's a real crack or if it's just some dirt. It's just some surface corrosion. So I will pull a little bit in it. No, it's okay. Time to go down a bit. Stop. So I'm just beneath the top spreaders. I mean, the good thing here is that the mast is new, so I mean there won't be any problems with any serious corrosion. But on an older mast, it's really important to check here, you know, the spreader base, if you have corrosion here on the actual mast, and also around brackets like this, if you have any stress cracks here in the aluminium, but also in the actual bracket inside here in the stainless, and of course like all of these fittings, if there's been any corrosion or cracks in the actual swage fitting here. But as you can see here, everything looks great. You can see here that it's insulated from the aluminium and the stainless with this, I guess it's some sort of rubber, really hard, or some sort of plastic. I also checked the antenna cables. I have one going out here, and this is the antenna for the AIS, if there's been any chafe or anything on the cable, but it looks good. It's going in here. Then we have this small antenna. I'm actually thinking about replacing this antenna to a taller one. We have okay reception on the AIS, but it could be a bit better. Also check the spreader tips out here. If there's any sign of cracks or anything in these brackets, and also the wire, if there's any problem with that from corrosion. Yeah, and one pretty common problem on the spreaders are the angle of the spreader. Sometimes they point too high or point too low. You should have around 6 degrees upwards on the actual spreader. And the angle here at the wire should be divided on the wire on top and the one below here. Because if it's not divided in the middle and the spreader is pointing too much up, you don't have the correct load going straight into the mast, and the whole thing could actually collapse, and then you have some serious problems. Going down, I also have a look at the actual mast extrusion. So I'm just above the lower spreaders. So I'll have a look at these diagonals here. If I have the correct tension on these. Same thing here. Check the turnbuckle for any signs of problems, and that the tape around here is okay. And then the same thing here, the spreader base, check that. Same thing here, it's actually some volcanic ash inside this swage fitting here. Try to clean that out. It's a nice peace of mind once you're out there in the big ocean that you have checked your mast through before you are going out there. There's nothing worse than sitting there in a gale, not trusting your mast. I remember that when I sailed to Antarctica. The mast I had on that boat was not good, and we had some stress cracks in the actual mast. But I saw that once we were down in Antarctica, so I had no means to fix it. And going back north from South Georgia Island, we had to beat against the wind for 2 weeks, and I had this constant feeling of the mast can fall down any minute now, and that's not a nice feeling. So it's a really nice peace of mind having a new mast and knowing that it's okay after a check like this before you head out on a longer crossing, really. Head stop. So I'm down here at the lower shrouds. Same procedure here. Check everything for cracks, corrosion. Everything looks good. That cut. Check the cotter pins. This one could be open a bit more. Fix that. It's good. It's crazy how fast you get surface corrosion, even on stainless steel like this. Especially on the wires. I know that a lot of problems with stainless steel wire when you get surface corrosion on it is that you get it from contamination. Maybe the shop where they have been putting together your wires has been dirty, the floor. Been having small iron dirt on the floor, and they've been dragging your wires around in that. And then they deliver your shiny new wires, and after a month they're all red from rust, surface rust, from that contamination from the floor. So that concludes the rigging inspection. I've checked everything at deck level and the whole mast, everything up here. And now we can set sail over the Atlantic with some peace of mind that we have done as much as possible to prevent any failure on the mast and in the rigging. Time to go back down. Was it a lot of work?
I got warm.
Oh wow.
So, all good?
Yeah, everything is good. We have checked everything now.
Hope you enjoyed this episode, despite being quite long and very technical. And if you would like to contribute to our production, you can join our Patreon crew. See you next week.